Boop. Welcome back to the White, Gray, Black Weekly Manga Podcast, the podcast where we talk about all the latest and greatest ongoing manga releases. My name is Bruce, the producer of the White, Gray, Black YouTube channel, and with me again this week is Gautam, CEO of Manga.
I'm in charge, baby.
Please keep in mind that for all major discussions, we will be talking spoilers for this week. This means up to chapter 1072 of One Piece, and also, I believe it's chapter 82 of Sono Bisque, 72? I have to figure that out. The latest chapter of Sono Bisque. That's my dress-up darling for you original anime watchers. Before we start, let me plug the YouTube channel. If you're watching us live, we are live on the White, Gray, Black channel. If you want to check out the VODs, they are up on the WGB Weekly Manga Podcast channel. Links to those are on the bottom of each channel. They are connected to each other. And if you want to listen to us, we are on all the major podcast providers, specifically Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Don't forget, if you enjoy the podcast and want to support us, head on over to the Patreon over at patreon.com/WGBmanga, where you will be able to hear a special life-altering conversation between Gautam and I about how we first got into anime and manga as young little chitlins. That should be up very soon by the end of the week. So with that, let's get started with the news.
All right.
Let's start with a little announcement. So, Ruri Dragon was the second best-selling Volume 1 in the fourth quarter in Japan. And then Goku Rakugai is the seventh best-selling Volume 1 in Japan's fourth quarter. Those are the two things that I'm kind of interested in talking about. Insane to me that Ruri Dragon...
Wild. Yeah, I was going to say,
Yeah.
I was waiting for you to finish. That's so wild. How? I mean, like...
I get it, but also... it's a weird one. There's other cute series about girls and going to high school or middle school or whatever that have a weird twist on them. I don't know.
I get the appeal. Like, the character design is top notch, and I kind of like that they made Ruri kind of a selfish little high school girl.
Yeah.
And I think both of those work so well, but it has a one volume and it's on indefinite hiatus. So I'm like,
that's the part that kind of gets. That's the part that kind of gets to me is the indefinite hiatus. But I understand. I mean, this is, I think, a lot of words of mouth. I mean, we talked months ago about how the first chapter of Ruri Dragon blew everything online, the weekly discussions online, out of the water. So yeah, pretty big. I did not see a full ranking of the best-selling Volume 1, so I'm wondering what beat it. I don't think... Yeah, I can't think of anything off the top of my head that might have beaten it, but something did, so...
Oh, but is Red Cat Ramen the demon one? With the cool character designs and the Black Lagoon Russian lady?
That's a good question. Yeah, Red Cat Ramen
came in... Right?
Yeah, Red Cat Ramen was the 20th best-selling Volume 1. I could not tell you. I have not read this, but
is that?
I think this is just about a cat that runs a ramen shop. I remember reading the.
Oh, I have never seen this before in my life. That seems.
I remember reading about the sort of the little thing, and it's just about a talking cat. I think that runs a ramen shop. So.
Oh, that's cute.
What else we got? A little bit of sales stuff. We'll go through this pretty quickly. Pretty standard. I think we talked about this last week. It's Blue Lock and Chainsaw Man at 1 and 2, Slam Dunk at 3. I think that's what we saw last. I think last week maybe it was Jujutsu Kaisen at 3 or something, and Slam Dunk at 4 or 5.
Identical.
Yeah, pretty much identical. The Mystery to Iu Nakare, which is it's called Don't Say Mystery, You're Not a Mystery or something in English. I think the English title of it is just Mystery though. That's a super well-selling series that I'm really interested to check out and read eventually. But yeah, going down the road, I mean, Spy Family at 6, One Piece at 7, Tokyo Revengers still selling well, which is interesting. My Hero and Natsume Yunjincho. Oh, that was Natsume's Book of Friends. That's what was, I think, 3 last week, but it's down to 10. But still in the top 10, so.
Yeah, that's the comfy anime that
I with the guy with all the friendly yokai, essentially. But yeah. So actually, the top selling single volume, was this Mystery to Iu Nakare. U is an interesting sound that you don't start Wordsworth in English. That's very hard for me to get my head around. Iu Nakare. That is the number 1 volume sold. That sold 200,000 volumes, which is an insane number. For reference, The second highest selling is about 120. So, and after that, it's 37, 32,000. So, drops off pretty severely after Mystery and Chainsaw Man. But yeah, those are the volumes. Pretty standard. Nothing really new or interesting, I don't think, coming up in here. There is, I will note at number 4, volume 11 of Goku Shufudo, which is the what is that called in English?
Way of the House Husband.
Way of the House Husband, yes, which is hilarious. I'm sad that I think the English fan translation for that is either dropped or slow. We might just be behind. They might actually be waiting for volumes to translate it. So we might be getting 4 to 8 chapters now. So
I believe it is dropped because it got serialized.
Yeah, it's very possible. It does happen.
Oh,
often.
you know what happened? Black Cat Scans, who picked it up after it got serialized.
They disbanded.
It disbanded, yeah, and no one picked it up after that.
And a lot of their more popular series, people just kind of split off and went to go do them themselves. Black Cat still does. I think they do Koryo America, because I just read that 30 minutes ago.
Oh, right, they do.
They do a couple other things too. I think they still do mostly rom-com stuff. But yeah, anyways, we won't. We'll try not to out the fan translation teams too much on a public platform, but yeah, Black Cat was a pretty good group. So
they were great, yeah. Shout out to all the dead fan translation groups. You were all MVPs in my eyes.
Yes, everyone.
But yeah, let's get through the sales because I want to ask you about Medica because I kind of dropped that. So.
Sure, yeah, we'll get to that. Only 3 more things in the news. One is the series, The 100 Girlfriends Who Really, 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 Really Love You, got an anime adaptation announced. This is an interesting one. I've grabbed at a couple of chapters here, but I've never sat down to read it. I understand people really like it, at least over on Reddit and the places where I follow manga. It gets lots of reads and is generally pretty well regarded. So I'm interested to see if the anime gets boosted up and locks it in.
It's just my actual disdain for harem shit that makes me not read it, but I hear it's a shit post and it's funny, so
the couple chapters where people have said this is hilarious, read this. There's a girl who's a Westaboo, right, and loves American Texas stuff. I think I maybe linked you that. It was a year ago, maybe longer. She says the F word in English. It's absolutely hilarious. So the stuff that I've seen of it seems really funny, but you're right. It is definitely literally a harem. I think in the first chapter too, the guy is I will have 100 girlfriends. But yeah, it seems very meme heavy shit posting.
I will say, shout out to Magu-chan, on that list, that one.
Yeah, this is the Anime Japan 2023 Manga We Want to See Animated nominees, and they just kind of listed some of the highlights here on this tweet. I would love to see a whole fully translated list. Maybe we could go through that next week. But yeah, number 1 is Blue Box, which is not. Wait, Blue Box is not the soccer one.
It's the art
Blue Box
one.
is the art one, right? Yes.
It's the art one, right?
It is sports comedy and sports manga. No, wait, is this? Wait, no. That's Awashi. Blue Box is the romance one that I read every week. I read this and I forgot what it was. This is the badminton. I dropped it. This is the badminton and the basketball girl. Yeah.
It is really cool seeing Akane and Witch Watch so high up.
Yes, I'm really Akane at 2 makes me very happy. It also blows my mind that something like that could be number 2. We're going to talk about Akane more later because I think Akane is
absolutely
a shoe-in. Sakamoto Days at 33 is pretty high. Love that.
I am surprised to see Witch Watch at 8. That is insanely high for a comedy. And
I think there's something. I always wonder this when Japan likes things more than the West does, or when the West like things more than Japan does. I always wonder if the translation, if something is lost in the translation, or because I read 8-10 chapters of Witch Watch, and it was fine. It was funny. It was comfy. I can see it being super comfy, but to be top 10, we want this animated thing. I don't know. Maybe it just gets better, and I haven't gotten to that part yet, but. Yeah, I mean, Dan to Dan at 48 and Witch Watch at 8, swap those. What the fuck? Swap those. Dan to Dan is, my number 1, animate this with a good studio, and it's, I'm there.
I would call Witch Watch incredibly funny at times. It gets better as it goes, but I would say it's more creative and incredibly enjoyable than it is hilarious in my eyes. And
yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. Just roll on that wild magic. You put it perfectly. There's no reason for anyone else to describe it any other way. It's wild magic, and I love it for that reason. Yeah.
Yeah, but Elusive Samurai at 58, that's pretty popular in Japan. I think less popular here. You and I are polar opposites. That's going to show up on our Manga Taisho Awards. Magu-chan, God of Destruction. You said you were talking about that, right? That you're happy to see it there?
Yeah, I finished that. First to last chapter. It was short and sweet and really good slice of life. I think it deserves an anime. Yeah, I don't know. Did you read any of it, Bruce?
I've not. I've seen discussions on it. If it's short, I'm always down to read completed series. Especially, I like things with endings.
It's done.
Very into endings, so I'm happy to read it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's done. It's fluffy and it's fun. So yeah,
cool.
It's an easy read.
Yeah, and then down at number 70, you've got. We talked about it last week, 2 weeks ago. Pianissimo. I don't know what you want to call it. Very quietly. I don't know how they will translate this in the West if it ever comes out, or if it literally just will be P. I think that's a bad name in the West, but we'll see.
It's a terrible name. But isn't that Ishida Sui's Tokyo Ghouls?
No, you're thinking of Chojin X.
Oh, I am. Yeah.
That's like next up on my plan to read after what I'm reading now. But yeah, Marriage Toxin is another one of those things that I gave a few chapters. Yeah, the Reddit threads really like that one, and I thought it was just okay. That's way down at 81. So I wonder if the translators and localizers bring something new to that in the West that the Japanese aren't getting. It's always very possible when you translate and localize that you could improve or hurt the intention of the author. So it's possible that in the West, Marriage Toxin is really good, and Witch Watch is slightly worse than it is. Who knows? But yeah,
I only read the first few chapters, but yeah, it was just all right. But maybe it gets a lot better. Who knows, right?
Yeah, and that's kind of the trouble with why you have to have a strong start in manga to keep people around to get to the good stuff.
There's just so much stuff, right? Like, so you have to start strong. Shout out to number 62, the U.S. economy. Glad to see that up there. Hopefully I don't see it up there in 2023, but I think I will. I think it'll be higher.
The joke for, if you are a listener only, number 62 is a series called Hyperinflation.
Yeah, I forgot to explain the joke to audio listeners.
No, it happens. It happens.
Imagine if I just didn't say anything, we just moved on.
People be like, "What is he talking about? What's number 62?" One last thing. This is news for me only because the Monogatari series is maybe my favorite piece of Japanese media of all time. It's amazing. Anyways, there's going to be a new Monogatari novel from Nisoi Isin titled Ikusa Monogatari. And the manga adaptation of Bakemonogatari is going to end in 7 chapters by O Great. His name in Japanese is O Greito, which I love, and his art is crazy. It's interesting to see that ending. That is only going to have adapted, I think, Bakemonogatari and Kizumonogatari, which is like sort of the first maybe 3 books, 3 or 4 books, and then the prequel initial first book. So interesting that he's getting another one. This was announced as like completed like 6 or 7 years ago, I want to say. Like I think it was 2016 or 2017, and Nisoi Isin wrote the last volume and was like, okay, it's over. And the anime adapted it a couple of years later, and yeah, interesting that he's going back to it. I wonder if he's reading the writing on the wall for Cypher Academy and being like, oh, I should just this isn't doing very well. I should write another Bakemonogatari book.
Hey, you know what? If it ain't broke, I get it.
Yeah, I mean, I love the Bakemonogatari series, so I'm all for it. Well, I'm sure Shaft is also like, hey, another, they'll make an OVA probably of the volume. So
yeah, right. It prints money, so
pretty much. I think that's all we've got for news. Let's do the mixed bag of stuff that we read real quick before we lead into full discussions. So, Akane Banashi was great as always. I don't know what to say other than this series is amazing.
Yeah, I feel like it's hard to describe why it's good. It's not. It's like amazingly well written. The characters are great. Like everything, it doesn't miss.
It's funny. It has drama. It has intensity and levity. It's just kind of everything. It reminds me.
Chihaya Furu. It reminds me of that.
Yes, and we're going to definitely compare those later on. It reminds me a lot of the of like Full Metal Alchemist of Arakawa's writing. The way that Arakawa always has like really strong characters, and there's always a little bit of levity and always a little bit of drama, and they're balanced really well. This chapter did something I really liked, which was she was preparing for her test to do the performance for the master who taught her the story or whatever. And you know by the end of it that she passed her test. It doesn't show you that performance of how she passed her test, but it had shown you her past performances. And then it promises us the next chapter that she's on stage and it's time for her to perform it. So, what did she do? Good. What's the mystery of what did she change that made her pass? What did she learn on her date with whatever the dude's name is? It's just like the perfect. Yeah. It's just like the perfect dramatic.
And they definitely just end up showing that on the stage, right? Like, I agree. That's a good plot device. I also thought that her and her bud going on a date was really sweet because they're just best pals.
Yeah.
And that's the little snotty asshole kid from the first chapter, all grown up. I love that. I love that trope.
Yeah. And it was also like romantic, but not in an insufferable shonen manga romance way of like, oh, I really like him, and it's like these two, it's like, it doesn't have to be read as romance, but it could be. I don't know. I liked it. It was just enjoyable either way. Like, if you read it as romance or not, it's enjoyable both ways, I think, which is a good way to look at it. It's like, oh, they could just be friends, or they could be romantic partners.
Yeah, exactly. So good shit. Akane doesn't miss.
Yep.
Not surprised it's number 2.
Yeah, for sure. Ginka and Luna, good again, 3 or 4 chapters worth of content packed into a single chapter. This is like the end of a fight and the recovery of the other 2 girls, and they go traveling and they get to a spot and they meet a dude and they go to another town traveling and they do more stuff, and then there's a celebration you learn about and you meet another bad guy, and that's in like 22 pages. It's so much.
Yeah, I'm kind of just used to the whiplash at this point. The first ride you go on at Six Flags is always like the most thrilling and scary, and then you kind of get used to it. That's Ginka and Luna's pacing for me. It was freaking whiplash at the beginning, but now I'm just expecting it. So
I had wondered because it had kind of slowed down the last 2 or 3 chapters. The fight with what's her name was more direct and more just like it was the fight and one flashback and very focused. I like those chapters. This one was kind of back to the old style. I still can't bring myself to hate this, even though I think it makes a lot of mistakes and is kind of
It's unpolished.
Unpolished, yeah, that's a good way to put it. It feels very beginner author-y, but still good. Like it isn't.
It has charm. Yeah. It has I would call it an inexplicable charm in a way.
Yeah, it has a lot of good stuff going for it. So Sakamoto Days was the other one I wanted to mention because we're wrapping up or at the end of an arc. Who's the female character breaks in, stops the fight, chases off with the guy because she's going to go kill the big bad, maybe, probably. My guess is next arc is rescuing her. We'll see. I don't know. Sakamoto Days is still just amazing action. Will not miss it. It's so good. I like it.
Yeah, it's freaking great. And it's one of those things where, like, I can be, like, half tuned out for the plot and still get what's happening and just watch for the visuals.
It does it does the, in my opinion, the perfect kind of shonen action manga thing where it's like the plot is very basic, right? I can describe to you the entire last like 20 chapters is, okay, Sakamoto and his pals have to infiltrate this school to find some documents. Like that is what has happened in the last 20 chapters. And then that's all you really need to know to read those chapters. And it's like, but there's fights going on and there's cool, interesting stuff. Yeah, I don't know, it's great. It's simple. It's simplicities built on top of each other. So it's perfectly complex and that it is still very simple to understand.
Yeah, I completely get it, right? Like it's about the action at the end of the day, and the plot takes second seat. Yeah. And speaking of which, same goes for Mashal.
Need to read that. Yep.
They're on the final boss fights of that series. I think it's coming to an end soon. And Mash was like it shows up at like the hero shonen showing up after all his buds are defeated, kind of a thing.
Mhm.
And he's like winning, and then of course losing after the villain uses more power, and then he does creatine in order to get
Really?
stronger.
That's
Yeah,
hilarious. Like Popeye spinach style.
yeah, exactly. That's
Squeezes it
exactly
out of the
right.
powder. Yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah, yeah, he does. He gets like a teaspoon of creatine. It's funny as fuck. It's like who 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 writes that? That's fucking great.
I really need to read Mashal. It's God, there's just so much to read.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk about the summer that Hikaru died now? Just a little bit, because did you read all of it, or how much of it did you read?
I read 3 chapters.
Okay,
So
yeah, so pretty good idea.
yeah, let's just talk about the beginning of it.
We'll save it later.
Oh, you want to save it for later when we talk about the
Yeah,
noms?
let's talk about it with the Taisho nominees, because I think that it's one of the 3 or 4 series to beat. So, let's just talk
Perfect.
about the biggest turnaround in manga, in my opinion, which was Sono Bisque Doll, My Dress Up Darling. Has been pretty bad for the past like 10 chapters. You like dropped it in the process of this past arc, didn't you?
No, not even this past arc, and it's
Like
not
2
the
arcs
manga's
ago?
fault. I dropped it.
Yeah.
It was like 25 chapters, 30 chapters ago.
Gotcha.
I kind of just got bored and stopped clicking in the links. But
Yeah, and it kind of it had a really good start, because you read the first 40, 50 chapters, right? So
I did, yeah,
And
and it
it's-
was really good.
and it's really good, yeah, and I really liked it. And it definitely kind of meandered and just kind of did some, oh, here's a new cosplay thing, blah, blah, blah. The last arc was really confusing. It had a bunch of different, like 5 or 6 girls dressing up as different girls, and it's very hard in manga to tell who's who, dressing up as each other, some like weird drama, like 2 weird dramas that turned into nothing. Anyways, that arc was bad. This chapter that dropped is chapter 87. For comparison,
So what went down?
Man, I don't want to spoil it for everybody, but it was like, oh, I think this girl hates Marin, the main character, but no, it's not that she hates her, it's that she's so in love with her she won't be able to control herself later. And so that was a big misunderstanding. There was another thing of like, oh, everyone was thinking, oh, I bet that this girl who hates Marin has a crush on Goto, on the main character, and that's not true. I don't know. It was a very messy. It's been a very messy 2 or 3 months for My Dress Up Darling. This chapter 87, for a comparison, if you go to Reddit, if it's the 24th or the 25th, if you go to Reddit and say, hey, show me the top post for this week, this is like the 3rd top post on the subreddit. This has 1,000 more upvotes than My Hero Academia, which had a pretty good chapter. This is the, I think, most upvoted chapter discussion of the week, is this chapter. And that really says something. I mean, and if you're looking at the screen right now, this doesn't look like My Dress Up Darling, does it?
No, it looks like Iruma.
Yes, and it is so cool. So the synopsis of this chapter is, the past chapter or 2, they were talking about a series that Marin wants to cosplay from, blah, blah, blah. They gave him the manga to read as inspiration, Goto, the main dude. And this is him reading it, and these are, manga panels you're supposed to imply from this sort of dark fantasy thing that he's reading. And it's unbelievably cool and unbelievably good. And it's, so the first maybe half of it, no, not even half, the first third or so is these really cool kind of dark fantasy pages. In the middle section, there's talk about the author's feelings on his works, and how he never wanted this adapted as an anime, and how he trying to remember exactly. There's some interesting feelings about authors' sort of ownership of their art and allowing people to be involved in that. It's going to tie into the cosplay, I think, eventually, so it's sort of setting up for that. It was very interesting. But yeah, I mean, there's just very cool paneling, like excellent art. Like, I cannot speak enough about how good it is. And then it ends, spoilers for the end of this chapter, skip ahead 30 seconds, 45 seconds if you want to skip it. At the end of this chapter, Goto is studying about, he's saying, oh, I need to learn more about different kinds of dolls. They're saying she looks like a doll, and stuff. And he goes, oh, what's this? He's looking at different kinds of dolls that are compared to the main character in the manga that Marin is going to cosplay. And he goes, oh, they're comparing her to this doll. What is this doll called? I don't know about, and I'm reading from the manga here. I don't know about anything other than Hina dolls, right? Which are the dolls that he's made. And he says, oh. And then you get this page that just says, they're called Bisque dolls. That's the last page of the chapter, and it's the title drop of the series, and it's so good. I love it. It's so excellent.
I guess it's just because I haven't read the chapter, but I don't understand the impact of that.
It's very hard to describe. The chapter is like incredibly dense with there is a connection between Goto, an artist creating both Hina dolls and cosplay. There's a connection with him and the author of the manga, and how it's very hard to describe how an author sort of studying or taking from someone else without the author's permission. The prediction here that most people in the comments were saying is probably that what's going to happen is Goto or somebody's going to reach out to the author and going to see how excellent his cosplay is, and the author's going to like approve it, and that's going to mean something from an artist to an artist to like approve another person's work. So anyways, this is the other thing here is that, hey, we got the title drop for the Japanese name of the series, but you can't title drop the English name in here because you can't go, oh, they're called My Dress Up Darlings. Like, that doesn't work, which is, man, I cannot stop complaining about Western media changing titles too much. Like, I get that you have to Westernize it a little bit. I don't understand why this in the West could not have been called like my Dress Up Bisque doll, or Dress Up Bisque doll, or a Cosplay Bisque doll, or something like that, because then you get this title drop when this is eventually translated into English, and it still has impact. There's no way they change this to put My Dress Up Darling in there. It just doesn't work. It pisses me off so much when they totally recontextualize and rename stuff here, right? Yeah.
That's what they're going to do. I mean, like, they have no other option.
Yeah. This, I'm sure something like this eventually will also happen. I'm going to guess Ranger Reject, right? Ranger Reject's name in Japanese is... Ranger. Yeah, Ranger Reject. I got to remember what the... So its Japanese name is Sentai Daishikaku. And that's like Reject Ranger, Rejected Ranger, something like that. And the Western name is like Go Loser Ranger. I'm going to guess that they're going to drop or call the main character of that, right? Like a Ranger Reject, a Sentai Daishikaku in Japanese, and that's going to be a cool title drop. And it's just like, are they just going to call him Loser Ranger? Like, that has so much less impact, in my opinion. So, anyways.
Man, we really are a bunch of Go Loser Rangers. It does not work. You can't title drop that.
Again, I understand you have to take some license with Western namings, but completely dropping the sort of key part. I mean, the key part of the Japanese thing is like Bisque doll, right? Sono Bisque doll is like, I think it's like you're my Bisque doll, or you are a Bisque doll, or she is a Bisque doll, or something like that, right? It's literally just the name of the title is just like something Bisque doll. Like, that is the important part of the title. That is the like noun in the English phrasing. And they just totally dropped that noun. It's My Dress Up Darling. And now it doesn't work at all. Anyways, I really encourage you, if you read Sono Bisque doll, and you dropped it in the past year even, just go read chapter 87. Maybe chapter 86 and 87 to get a little intro, but man, this chapter was amazing. I just can't even stress how amazing the art. I was blown away by the art and the story and the character and the title drop. Yeah, it's all very good.
Nice.
Cool.
Good to hear that it got better.
Yes. So you have written on our little shared document that you want to talk about Boku no Pico Academia. So
yep.
YouTube is going to take this part down because I've edited all the pictures. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Straight to prison.
My Hero Academia. See, this is one as a slight tangent. This is one where the Western name works completely because what is it? Boku no Hero Academia is My Hero Academia. That's a direct translation. Anyways, this is a pretty good chapter.
Yeah. That's why I put it here. Honestly, it's like, this is the first chapter in, I don't know how long I had a good time with. Yeah. So I felt
at least 6 months for me.
Hey, we talked so much shit about My Hero that I wanted to highlight a good one. Now that we actually got one, and it's all because I just like Gentle, dude.
I also like Gentle. Yes.
Yeah. His power is sick. His aesthetic is sick. His whole vibe is
design
sick.
is cool.
I'm like this Gentle fangirl right here.
What's her name?
La Brava.
La Brava. Yeah, La Brava.
Yeah. dude, look at this fucking character design. I think he looks badass. Nice
He looks
stash,
sick.
Gentle.
Yeah.
Um,
He looks
yeah,
cooler than All Might, in my opinion. Like, this is the guy I want to be the number one hero, actually, is this dude.
yeah, I think it's just the epic stash, you know? It's
It's the
really
stash,
working
it's
Gentle.
it's like like neatly groomed beard, the kind of matching hair. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Horikoshi's visual design, his character design has like always been great. So I've almost never had issues with that. So.
I also think it stems from the fact that I think that the Gentle arc was kind of a mini return to form. Of
Yes.
what, because I thought like the smaller scale of things, like the school tournament arc, or very early on, was probably my peak enjoyment of My Hero, and then it got like the scale got a bit too grand for my liking,
Hmm.
and then they scaled it back with the Gentle arc, and that was really fun. And I think that was also Horikoshi's cleanest like fight drawings. Deku versus Gentle. It was like,
Yes. It was simple,
and
straightforward, two people's power versus power. We don't get those very often anymore. Um,
yeah, and it's kind of cool, like how Hori usually he's a brilliant artist, but sometimes his paneling is confusing. I didn't find the paneling confusing at all.
no, I thought it
with
worked really well
Gentle.
in this series. Yeah, here's the sort of climax thing. But I totally agree with you, and I think one of the things. So because I've been working on my next video, which is a review of Fire Force, which is another action battle shonen, exactly like My Hero is. Something that I really like about Fire Force is that no matter how sort of serious and intense it gets, which it doesn't. I mean, it does get serious and intense. Like it still has fun. There's still a lot of fun in Fire Force, and I think that's what you were talking about the first time Gentle and the Brava showed up, right? Is that My Hero Academia got really serious in the Yakuza arc. It was incredibly serious. They were rescuing Eri. There was no fun to be had. And then when he fights Gentle, it like, okay, this is fun again, right? It's fun. It's just a dude who's like stealing apples or whatever, or like, oh, he's going to attack the school, but he's obviously not a real threat. It's fun. It's a fun fight. There are stakes, but they aren't too high. It's resolved in an interesting way. And like that part of the story is just fun. I think that's why you and I both really liked it when we haven't liked a lot of the other stuff in My Hero in the last 3 or 4 years, right? It's because it's
Mhm.
gotten really, really overly serious where it takes itself super serious and I'm not having fun reading it, which in my opinion, action battle shonen should always be fun. Like they should have some amount of fun or satisfying kind of, yes, the good guys are winning. It needs those kind of feelings, those positive feelings. I need to get those out of an action battle shonen. Now other people might not. I feel like I need to get those, and that's why I've liked My Hero a lot less, is because it's just kind of been down and dour and intense and dramatic and is not very much fun. And in this chapter, Gentle comes back, and I felt like I was having fun again.
Yeah, yeah, and it's exactly as you said. I also think it's, for me, it's Deku character regression. I think he hasn't used his brain, because that was
Yeah.
his archetype at the beginning. He hasn't used his brain in a while.
I
Still
mean,
hasn't,
I was going to
but
say I don't even remember the last time he used it. It must have been pre All Might versus One for All, right? Or All
yeah,
for One, but yeah,
probably. Like I haven't seen his little like nerdy notebook in forever, right?
yeah. And I think I definitely I think a lot of people who have complaints about My Hero, I see the same thing in comments online. Is that Deku used to be this sort of like, oh, he didn't have a power, so he had to think about other people's powers and think about how to beat them and what to do. And then now it's like, oh, but now he has a power, and now he has 14 powers, and so you're right. We haven't seen a Deku notebook in forever. So
And I'm aside from like the writing, right? I think I am a fan of unconventional powers. Like
mhm.
elasticity is super creative and
It's a
fun.
good one.
I
Yeah,
li- I like Mirio's intangibility. That was really fun.
that was an interesting one because see, I love Mirio's intangibility because it
The
isn't just a
downsides.
power. Right, exactly. It has downsides. Right, he has to hold his breath when he goes through rocks. He can't breathe while he's inside rocks. He can't see anything because all the light passes through him. Stuff like that is very cool. Whereas when Deku was most interesting was when his power had the drawback of destroying his body. Like as soon as that was gone, Deku's powers have been mostly wholly uninteresting, right? There's no
And they
downside
gave
to
him
him
like eight
flying.
AP ones. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no downside to him flying. There's no downside to him using Black Whip. There's no downside to whatever other powers he's gotten. His strength has not hurt him in a long time. Yeah, I mean, I'll always bring up. Have you seen Darker Than Black, the anime?
Yeah.
Darker Than Black has some of the coolest power systems imaginable.
Completely agree.
There's the guy with the ice powers who like has to smoke a cigarette after he's done. There's the girl who has to. Yeah, he hates smoking cigarettes. I think there's a girl who has to like drink a soda can every time she uses her powers. A girl has to kiss people. There's just these like random off the wall. It feels very, again, like wild magic D&D type. Like you roll and you have to do this random thing. The cool thing about that is that, okay, the main character doesn't have a drawback, but he's given other sacrifices up for that. If you don't know what that is, I won't spoil it. Go watch Darker Than Black. It's seriously one of my favorite anime. Don't watch season 2. Watch Darker Than Black and maybe the in-between OVAs, and do not watch season 2 of Darker Than Black.
I love the girl with the power that she had the most OP one, which was creating vacuums, but the trade-off was like drinking children's blood in order to use it.
Yes, yeah.
And she like dies from diseases from doing that. Like,
yeah, she got like hepatitis C or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Insane.
Anyways, this is a brief tangent into how to design your magic systems, and yeah, there should always be restrictions on your magic systems. My Hero has lost a little bit of that, but this is a good chapter. This was fun. They also bring back at the very end in this last panel here, Sniper Girl, whose name I can't remember. Nagant, yes, and she was a cool design, and this is pretty predictable that she came back as a good guy, I would say. I wanted to bring up that in this chapter, we see 3 previously quote-unquote bad guys from My Hero come back and help the good guys. Is this foreshadowing for redemption of the main bad guy of Shigaraki?
I don't think this is foreshadowing for that, but I think it's going to happen.
I think it is foreshadowing of that, and I also think it is going to happen. I think in general, this now solidifies. I really wasn't sure how My Hero was.
Prediction?
What's up?
You remember my end of the year prediction?
I can bring it up. What do you remember?
Yeah.
Tell me what it is.
No. Yeah, it was just that Shigaraki will get redeemed, even though he doesn't deserve it whatsoever.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're on track for that one. Before this chapter, we haven't really known how My Hero was going to treat the end of their enemies, their bad guys. With this, I can see that we'll probably kill 1 or 2 of them or capture them. I think a lot of the main bad guy cast will be redeemed. I'm thinking, I don't know about Toga. I think Toga gets redeemed.
Oh, she sucks.
She does suck, and her chapter, whenever we talked about it a month or 2 ago, was pretty awful. I think Shigaraki, I think it's likely that he's sort of redeemed, or, hey, you were abused, this isn't your fault, it's okay type thing happens.
Yeah,
but
he gets like redeemed in death kind of a thing.
Yeah, redeemed and then dies would be my prediction, but yeah, I just think that this chapter really gave a lot of evidence towards, hey, there's 3 previously bad guys. They are all sort of redeemed and working with the good guys now. This is what the series is going to do. This is where it's going. We're going to redeem the bad guys.
I would like to see Hori even fucking try to redeem either Dabi or Stain, you know? Like
Stain I could see. Well, see, Stain is already Stain is already not fully a bad guy, right? He is not on the bad guy's side. Like, he's still a bad guy. Just because he's a bad guy does not mean he's a bad guy. Stain is more of a psychopath.
Insane.
Yes, he's more of a psychopath, but he's not necessarily on the side of the bad people.
He's just a mass murderer, but he's like not one of the villains.
Yes, he is chaotic evil, and the bad guys are lawful evil, right? They have a purpose. Or neutral evil even. He's much more chaotic, but I could see Stain getting some kind of redemption because he like kind of worships Deku and All Might in a way. So I could see something happen there, but Dabi, but no way Dabi gets a redemption, right?
Stain is lawful evil because he has
Stain could be lawful evil, yeah.
Because he has a set of rules. Like he's like a shitty Batman.
He is very much like kind of like a super shitty Batman.
Yeah.
Do we think so? Dabi's interesting. Let's make this our last point on this. Do we think Dabi gets a sort of like I'm sorry son from Endeavor, and then he cries and then dies or something? Or do we think Endeavor is just like, you are my greatest mistake, I failed you, die? How do we think that goes?
Yeah, I think Dobby like kills or mortally wounds or puts Endeavor out of commission and then like burns away in front of him or something.
Oh, you think
And
he sacrifices his own life to get revenge on his dad? That's poetic. I
yeah,
like that actually.
yeah.
I like that a
I
lot.
that's how I would write it because I don't think he should be redeemed, right? Like I think it
Yeah.
should just be a big fuck you middle finger to his dad and
Yeah, we'll see. I think I think your guess is poetic and appropriate for the character. We'll see if Hori decides to do that.
yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
Well,
it's
I mean,
fucking
yeah,
Hori.
it's hard to take a whole lot of complaints with the actual like story decisions that Hori makes. It's more about his execution of it. So he could make that decision and execute it good or bad. Who knows? But yeah, any last things to say on My Hero here?
Yeah, I thought this chapter Koichi from Vigilantes would be in it, but he wasn't. And at
He
this
will
point, I
not
don't
be.
see it happening. Yeah, which is fine. Read Vigilantes though; it's so much better than My Hero
Yeah,
Academia.
Vigilantes is so good.
Yeah,
So
My
the
Hero Vigilantes.
yes, My Hero Academia. Is the Western version still called Vigilantes? No, I'm not.
Yeah, I think it's called My Hero Vigilantes.
Okay. The next thing, let me just bring this up. I'll just put the little Wikipedia thing on. The main part of this podcast is we got an announcement of the nominations for the Manga Taisho Awards. So, a couple of quick points from the wiki. If you don't know what the Manga Taisho Awards are, this is an annual award given to something that has published 8 or fewer collected volumes in the past year. So this could be something that's been around for 2 or 3 years if they've published 8 or fewer total collected volumes. It is also different than a lot of the other awards. What a lot of people don't know is a lot of these other awards are either started or run by the actual publishing companies, right? So Shueisha will give out, some shonen award, and it'll give it to something from Weekly Shonen Jump, and it's like, okay, it's worse than Hollywood patting itself on the back. It's literally Shueisha patting itself on the back, right? The Manga Taisho Award is based on votes from the Manga Taisho Executive Committee, which is about 100 people, and they are primarily bookstore workers who manage manga sections, individuals working in the manga industry. A couple of them are artists, authors, book designers, editors. Oh, no, sorry, I read that wrong. If you're a manga artist, author, book designer, or editor, you are barred from sitting on the committee. So this is only for people outside of the industry voting on the industry. That makes a little bit more sense. So this is a reader's. This is sort of the, in my opinion, this is sort of like the reader's award for manga. The stuff that has won this and been nominated for the past 3 or 4 years that I've been following it have all been really, really good and really deserve the win. And you'll see, we'll go through some of the winners in a minute. What big names have won this before they've gotten like super big. The voting system also is really good for this. Just real quickly, they do a ranked choice top 3 essentially. So you, all of these 100 bookstore owners, manga manager people, submit their top 5. They say, hey, these are the 5 things I really want, that I think people should read this year, that I want to win. They get those down to a top 20, which they all rank choice 1, 2, 3. That gets them to a top 10. They rank choice again. Again, your number 1 gets 3 points. Your number 2 gets 2 points. Your number 3 gets 1 point. And whoever has the most points gets first place. So again, ranked choice voting. No one in the manga industry is involved. It's third party. No one on the manga industry directly votes on it. So this is all a reader's thing. It's also an interesting award because it does not always reward highly artistic, quote unquote, things. This isn't like this is not a fancy frou-frou award. Sometimes it is, but not always. This is much more, I think, I read in an interview about people talking about the Manga Taisho Award. It is much more a thing where the owners of these bookstores that manage these manga sections will say, this is the thing that I tell people to read that has come out, in the past year. It's like, these are the things that I want other people to read. So this is the Go Read It Award, the Manga Taisho Award. Yeah, have you kept up with this in the past, Gautam? I know you know a couple of the past winners.
No, I've just kept up with the winners. I've never actually seen the nomination list before.
Yeah, pretty interesting stuff. So speaking of past winners, just to give you an idea of the kinds of things that have won before we have our discussion. In 2009, you get Chihaya Furu, which is one of, if not the largest shoujo manga of the past 2 decades, 20 years, I think, at least. That also has the largest voting margin ever. I think it got something like 109 points. And almost all the others get like around 70, like 60, 70, 80 points to win. Again, that tells you the votes are pretty spread out here. In 2011, you get March Comes In Like a Lion. That's also an incredibly well-regarded series. We've talked about on the podcast before. 2012. 2012 Silver Spoon by, my supreme goddess Arakawa wins. 2016 Golden Kamui, that's a big one. 2018 Beastars wins. This is why I'm saying that it's not always the sort of hyper artistic, artsy, interesting short form things, right? Like Beastars is just kind of like a shonen. Like it's interesting and different. But Beastars wins in 2018. Frieren wins in 2019. We talk about Frieren a ton. That's awesome. Last year, the Darwin Incident won. I think maybe...
That's why you read it, actually.
Yes, it is, because and I think, I don't know when we actually get the announcements of those winners. It might be months in the future, because I feel like we both read that starting in maybe like August or September, because it was announced that it won the Taisho Award, and we read Darwin Incident, and it's really good and really interesting. Also, it's going on hiatus as a little news insert. I saw that today. But yeah, so as you can see, they're pretty broad, diverse of kind of shonen, shoujo stuff. Some stuff is really artsy. Some stuff is not. Trying to think if there's anything else on here. Right, like 2014 A Bride Story wins. That's the one about sort of it's like an Iranian girl gets sold to be a bride. It's very Otoyomegatari. That's still being published, I think. But if you want to, for instance, let's see the nominees in the past like 3 or so years. Dan was nominated last year. Oshinoko was nominated last year. Oshinoko also nominated in 2021. Kaiju Number 8 was nominated 2021. Spy Family in 2021. Chainsaw Man in 2020. Spy Family in 2020. So it is not just... it is not a pure popularity contest. It is not a pure sales contest. It is also not a pure kind of artistic thing. I think it strikes a nice balance between both of those.
And okay, Bruce, who do you think is going to win this year?
So let's go through let me just read the nominees for this year, and their authors in case you want to look these up. The 2023 nominations for the Taisho Awards are Akane Banashi, which we talk about. That's by Yue Suenaga and Takamase Moe. That's the only one with 2 authors on it. That's an author and an artist, a writer and an artist. Gekiko Kamen, which I think I've mentioned in the past. That's by Takayuki Yamaguchi. Goodbye Eri by Tatsuki Fujimoto. That's a familiar name if you're familiar with Chainsaw Man. Kore Kaite Shine, which does not have an English version. That's by Minoru Toyoda. Nippon Sengaku, again, no English version of this, by Ika Matsuki. Onana Sono no Hoshi, that is Garden of Girls. That has a couple different translation English I've heard. That's by Yama Wayama. I read that today. The Summer Hikaru Died. I think I talked about this maybe a month or 2 ago on the podcast. That's by Moku Mokuren. Super no Ura Dayani Sufutari. This is smoking cigarettes behind the back of the convenience store. That's by Jinushi. Oh. We've talked about that. That's nominated. Takapi's Original Sin by Taizan 5. We've talked about that. Again, 2 or 3 months ago. We've only been doing the podcast for 3 or 4 months, so we've talked about everything in the last 3 or 4 months. And the last one is Tenmaku no Jadugal, A Witch's Life in Mongol. I looked for an English version of this, also not one. That is by an author called Tomato Soup. And the last one is You and I Are Polar Opposites by Kocha Agasawa. So, what do I think is going to win this? If you ask me to just pick one thing that I think is going to win this, I'm gonna pick the winner. Maybe I think this is a hot take, but you can let me know if it is or not. I actually think Akane Banashi wins this.
That was one of the 2 I thought would win. But I think one is going to win over Akane.
It's probably Goodbye Eri that I would guess that you think.
I was going to say Takapi's Original Sin.
Or Takapi's. I think there's 3 or 4 front runners here, right? I think Goodbye Eri and Takapi are the 2 that are the front runners to beat. I think that the Summer Hikaru died. It won some awards a month or two ago when I read it. I think that's a really good series. It's really short. This award doesn't really care how many chapters are out. I think that's also one to kind of beat. I will say that I can the ones that have no English version I can't give a take on. So Kore Kaite Shine, I have no opinion on it. Nippon Sengaku, couldn't tell you. A Witch's Life in Mongol, again, no English translation. I can't really have an opinion on that. I don't think Smoking Behind the Supermarket has a chance here. I don't think You and I Are Polar Opposites has a chance.
I'm surprised you didn't see it on the list, to be honest. Not that it's bad. It's good.
No, these are all very good. I just think that compared to Akane, Goodbye Eri, The Summer Hikaru Died, and Takopi, those are like outstandingly good.
Right, those are hitters. Let's see who's right whenever the results comes out. I'm betting on Takopi. Bruce is betting on Akane.
Yeah, here's my take. I think Akane has more chance than people would give it, even though it shows up in weekly. It's just a weekly shonen. I think Goodbye Eri is the thing to beat here. I think that's the shoe-in for, if that wins, everyone will nod their head and say, yep, absolutely, deserves to win. Goodbye Eri is amazing. Let's move on. Do you agree with that, or do you think no?
I don't know. I think Akane has almost as good of a chance, mainly because we saw those requests for anime lists just a second ago, and it was number 2.
That's a good point. Yes. The other thing I want to point out is, let's do a comparison to, I mentioned the past winners, and do you remember which past winner had the largest voting margin?
Chihayafuru, right?
Chihayafuru. Now, let's take a look at that. Chihayafuru is a female-led, sort of sports-adjacent battle. It's not a battle shonen, it's a battle shoujo, I guess you could say. It's sort of a sports battle shoujo, right? Akane Banashi is a female-led. We've talked often in the past about how it's very much set up like a sports manga of the player getting better, the player having competitions. It's just the performance is kind of a thing. Chihayafuru also is based on, the card game that I'm forgetting, Karuta. Which is a very Japanese thing, right? Like Karuta, there might be a version of it in Korea, I feel like I remember reading, but that's a super sort of Japan cultural thing. Akane Banashi, also based on this very sort of Japan cultural thing, right? In the performances she does, which is, its name is just escaping me, but.
Oh, Rakugo?
The Rakugo. Yeah, Rakugo. There you go. I was just like, man, I need to write it down. Yeah. So again, Karuta, female, like there's sort of this Japanese staple, female-led kind of action sports adjacent, but not really type thing. Like I think Akane Banashi and Chihayafuru are maybe two of the like most similar series I've ever seen. Now, Chihayafuru leans a lot more into shoujo, a lot more into romance. I don't think Akane is going to do that. That's maybe the big difference between them. But I think Akane has a super big chance because again, I just think that the Rakugo being like this super Japanese thing in the same way that Karuta is a super Japanese thing, female-led, it's popular already. Chihayafuru was already popular in 2009. Like, I think Akane has a real chance to win this.
Yeah, I'd say we know the 3 front runners. I feel like it's Akane, it's Goodbye Eri, because those 2 are immensely popular. We have the stats for it, and the reason I put Takopi up there is, one, it's incredibly unique, short and finished, but also we saw the numbers Taizen 5 got on Deadly Sin right after Takopi's original sin. So
5 million, 8 million reads or something like that. Yeah, insane.
Yeah, so that's clearly in competition as well. So I think it's one of those 3 that's going to get this.
Yeah, and I'll do my last little pitch for Akane is, I think that if you walked into a manga bookstore, right, and talked to one of these guys who was voting, the people who voted, right, these manga store owners, these manga section organizers, and you said, hey, like, I just want to read something new, and I'm a Japanese person. What do you suggest to me? It's like, Goodbye Eri is a little weird. I think you could suggest that to almost anyone. I think it's artistic. I think it's good. I think it's quality. I also think Goodbye Eri is sort of a manga reader's manga, if that makes sense, right? Goodbye Eri is for people who read a lot of manga, the sort of framing of it around movies and stuff, there's a lot of connections there. And so if you read a lot of manga, you'll love Goodbye Eri. If you don't read a lot of manga, I don't think you'll understand it. I think you'll find it maybe a little weird. I think you could still enjoy it. It's more up to the person, I would say. Takapi's Original Sin also is like, that's intense. Like, there's like childhood abuse and trauma in that. I don't know if I'm suggesting that to anyone who comes up and asks me for a recommendation. I think Akane you can recommend to anyone. I mean, like, you could give that,
absolutely right.
You give that to an 8-year-old girl and she would love it. You could give that to a 60-year-old grandma or a 60-year-old grandpa who goes and watches Rakugo. And I think that everyone would love that. So I think Akane Banashi has the kind of broad appeal, extra bump. And I think that's the same reason that Chihayafuru probably won in its year. I wonder what it was up against Chihayafuru. Let's see what it beat.
I also think, because Chihayafuru doesn't have very good sales, but
it actually does. It sells for shoujo. It's incredibly. I think it's the number 2 or number 3 like best selling shoujo of all time, behind like Fruits Basket and maybe Sailor Moon. Like, it might even outsold Sailor Moon.
But in comparison to any of the top 3 we have here, it's kind of dwarfed. It's dwarfed, but it got so many votes because I think it's one of those things that has a very passionate fan base. Gintama is my favorite anime comedy of all time, but it's clear that they have an immensely passionate fan base who will go out there and actually vote for it. If you look at the My Anime List top 100, it's there like 3 times for different seasons because people just fucking love it. And I think that's probably the same with Chihayafuru fans. Not putting aside the fact that it's like incredibly well written, but I think it just has a dedicated set of fans as well, you know?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's hard to make a comparison on 2009, the year that Chihayafuru won. The only things that I recognize that it won against is I recognize Space Brothers. Space Brothers is by what's his name? I recognize the Space Brothers name, and then it won against March Comes Like a Lion, which ends up winning 2 years later. So, but maybe a better comparison here is March Comes In Like a Lion in 2011 beat like Attack on Titan, right? And Attack on Titan, I think, is amazing at that point, is wonderful, but it's also more adult. It's a little bit harder to recommend to just anyone who walks in the front door of your manga store, right? So, again, I think that edges up Akane Banashi, because again, I think you can recommend Akane Banashi. It's a for all ages story for a bunch of different people, old people, young people, shonen readers love it. I think shoujo readers even should love it. I think it's very good. It has incredibly well written female characters so far. It is like miles and miles above writing female characters over everything else in WSJ, in my opinion. So yeah, I actually think maybe it's not a hot take because I've now established my argument, and I think it's pretty good arguments, but I think Akane wins this. So.
Oh, I don't think that's a hot take. I think it's the front runner along with Eri and Takapi being third. But I think they're all up there, you know.
Yeah, I think if any of those win, I would be pretty happy. I even think if the Summer Hikaru died one, I'd be impressed, but still pretty happy. I read the Garden of Girls. It's only 3 chapters, the Ona no Sono no Hoshi. That was okay. It's pretty funny. It's very just kind of slice of life. Only 3 chapters in the West. I don't know what that means in Japan. Gekiko Kamen is one that I have read some of. That is dense and adult and very niche. And so I don't think that has a chance, although I will say that I do think that it's good. I just think in this competition, it just has too much in the competition, there's too much competition. Who would have thought?
Yeah. There's too much quality shit. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Brother, Delicious in Dungeon got nommed 4 times.
This is the other little stat that I wrote down here. So the most nominated series for the Manga Taisho Award without a win is Dungeon Meshi, Delicious in Dungeon by Ryoko Kui. It was also the most nominated author. So Delicious in Dungeon was nominated 4 times. But Ryoko Kui has been nominated 6 total times without a win. Also nominated for Hikitashi ni Terrarium and 7 Little Sons of the Dragon. I haven't read either of those. I'm sure they're good because Delicious in Dungeon is an awesome series. So
yeah, Delicious in Dungeon, Dungeon Meshi is fucking magical. It deserves a noms, and I think it'll get a win before it ends.
I don't think it will because I think it has more than 8 volumes, so I don't think you're allowed to nominate it anymore.
Okay,
I think it has been volumed out, which is the sort of purpose of this award is for a quote unquote new or smaller series to be nominated, right? So, I mean, you can see that the things that won were not really the best selling things. I think they were popular or rising in popularity, but I mean, Silver Spoon didn't break any kind of sales records. March Comes Like a Lion is popular is your favorite mangaka's favorite manga, as we've mentioned in the past. But I mean, even Beastars, right? Beastars sold pretty well, but Beastars did not sell most of the stuff in WSJ when it was out. Frieren is a little bit of an exception there. Frieren is doing numbers, but Darwin Incident is just doing okay numbers from what I've seen, right? I think it's only on 2 or 3 volumes, so.
And I don't think that'll do more than okay numbers because it's such a weird.
It's weird plot. And it's a little too adult. Like, I don't think a 14-year-old is going to read Darwin Incident and enjoy it. It's too worldly.
It would probably freak me out a little bit, actually, if I read it as a kid.
Yeah,
I think it would scare me a little bit.
It's also, there's very much this sort of like terrorist undertones and vegan vegan set of mind things discussed, where it's like, that's like adult. I really like that as a 32-year-old dude. Like, I like that. But I don't think kids like that. Again, yeah, I think that most of the winners we see in the past here are more broad. Now, what did the Darwin Incident win against? Because I think, it beat Look Back would be the impressive one there. Dandadan and Oshinoko, but I can kind of understand, as Oshinoko and Dandadan were already pretty popular, so maybe the Darwin Incident was the one they said, hey, this is the one no one's reading that we think is really good. Let's boost it up. So.
Oh yeah, and it actually it went up against, of course, there's Dandadan and Oshinoko, the huge ones, right?
Yeah.
But Hiraya Sumi, it stopped getting posted on like Reddit or Manga Dex, but it was I really liked that series. I was wondering.
Yeah,
where
I've heard of this.
Yeah, it's glad to see it's doing well. It was a really charming series. I hope I see it again sometime. And similarly, another one that stopped being translated is Trillion Game.
Yeah, I have not heard of this one.
It's interesting. Yeah, it's about 2 dudes who start with nothing and try to strike it big as trillionaires. They have 2 different sets of skills. One's like incredibly intelligent but like socially awkward, and the other one is incredibly charismatic but doesn't have any kind of technical prowess whatsoever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and if you go, if you want to, you can Google Manga Taisho and look at the awards and look at the point spreads. To be honest, the points are like pretty close most years. Like last year for Darwin Incident had 74 votes. Look Back had 68. Hiraya Sumi had 66. Dandadan had 53. So these are not super. There's not a whole lot of blowouts. Now, Frieren the year before was a little bit of a blowout. That had 91 points, and right below it was 67. So it's an almost 25-point lead there. But most years, it's pretty close. I want to go look at the big gap that was Chihayafuru. Yeah, see, even in the Chihayafuru year, that got 102 votes, and then Space Brothers got 94. So that's only 8-point difference. Looks like everyone was kind of in agreement that year on the 2 or 3 things to vote for. But usually they're pretty close. Within 10 or 15 points of each time. But yeah, I think this is a great award. This is definitely the thing that I see and I go, okay, this is what's on my plan to read list now, right? Like I went and read The Garden of Girls, and last year, like we were talking about, read Darwin Incident after we heard that it had won. So
yeah.
And I'm more interested in, you and I are polar opposites now. I'm more interested in finishing Gekiko Kamen or continuing to read Gekiko Kamen, although I don't know if it's for me. I'm not quite into the Kamen Rider culture as much to understand a lot of it, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of it's lost on the Western audience, you know?
I think so, and it's hard to get over that, so.
Yeah, we just don't have nostalgia for it. We didn't grow up with it, so it's it doesn't resonate with some of the points that it must resonate with for a Japanese audience, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Anything else to say on the manga awards there?
No, but let's check back in once we get some results.
Yeah, so I think I don't know when the results for this are announced. Let me see if the wiki has it on there. It does not say. We will get those eventually, and we will check back. It'll be a smaller discussion because we'll just be talking probably about the winner or the top 2 or 3. But yeah, when we get that, we'll talk about it. It'll be interesting to see if something we didn't mention wins. Like, it could possibly be one of the ones that we don't have a translation for in the West. Because I don't know how good those are. Those could be very good. Those could be absolutely the thing that they want to boost up that isn't popular. I mean, Akane is already very popular, so maybe the authors, or not the authors, the bookstore owners don't want to boost that up. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, I'm curious. But yeah, let's see which one of us, which one of the predictions come true. I could very easily see it being Akane though.
I definitely think that it's. I definitely think it has a place. Okay, let's talk. Let's talk what else we're doing in our one last little thing.
You got it.
I'll go first, just because it's my turn to go first this time. I have been reading Trigun, and it's way better than I thought it was going to be. I was expecting. Have you seen the anime, or have you read the manga of Trigun?
I watched the anime a long time ago. I only remember the first half of it.
Yeah. Second half there, I believe, was original content or very abridged later content. It definitely has the sort of 90s aesthetic, and the art and paneling can get a little bit messy at times, but man, you do, I think, 2 or 3 chapters, and then you get a good solid, like, 3 or 4 chapter arc. This is a monthly published one, right? So that's the equivalent of an 8 or 9 chapter arc for regular stuff. And man, it's really good. When it actually does, like, emotional stuff, I've only read maybe 10, no, maybe I'm like 14 chapters in, so I think I've gotten through, like, 5 or 6 episodic chapters and then 2 big story arcs, and the big story arcs do emotional character stuff, like, really well. This is a really well-written manga. I like it a lot.
I innately love Trigun, even though I don't remember it very well, because I loved Vash the Stampede. He was the goofiest motherfucker in the universe.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen the new show, but I hope they keep his.
What inspired me to read this is that I saw clips from the new show. That's Trigun Stampede, and it looks awesome. I'm super hyped to watch it. If you have not seen, look up, just Google some YouTube clips of Trigun Stampede. It is by Studio Orange, who historically did the Beastars and the Magical Stone Girls show, whose name I'm forgetting, Land of the Lustrous, which I think are far and above, maybe the only 2 good 3D animated anime ever released.
If we exclude movies, yeah.
Yes, if we exclude movies, because the Lupin movie was great. Final Fantasy Spirits Within is the best movie ever made, obviously. So,
Advent Children looked great at the very least, you know.
I was joking. Yeah, Spirits Within is a garbage movie. Advent Children is fun though. I like Advent Children a lot. But
it bankrupted Square Enix, that movie.
Yeah, it probably deserved it.
Yeah.
I will say something else that I love about Trigun, and I think I made a tweet about this that you may have seen. The names of the chapters. If you just look in the first like 20 chapters, listen to some of the names of these chapters, right? Chapter 1 is called The 60 Billion Double Dollar Man. Chapter 2 is called Looney Tunes. Chapter 3 is called Hard Puncher. Chapter 5 is just called Assault. Chapter 6 is called Die Hards. Chapter 13, Blood and Thunder. Chapter 14, Diablo. Chapter 17, Slaughtered Cafe. Invisible Eye, Chapter 19, Demon Squad. It has like the greatest first like 12 or 15 chapter titles like I've ever seen. Like Hard Puncher, Die Hards, The 60 Billion Double Dollar Man, Blood and Thunder. Like these are the greatest titles I have ever heard.
I feel like the author got progressively drunker as he thought of names, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, I mean, if you keep going, there's even more good ones. There's like Bluesy Killer Horn, Crying Wild Bullet, Death Deal, Let Us Walk the Path to Redemption. That's a great name for a chapter. Cross X Assassins, Death Omen. It just has really good chapter titles. When a lot of times you just don't think about the chapter titles of the manga you read. I was like reading the list, and it's just like, wow, these are really cool. Like I'm totally ready to get to Slapstick Days and Thunderstruck, and like it
feels like an AI made those names.
Not even AI. It feels like a dude was just like, this sounds cool, and went with it. I don't think an AI could be this diverse, right? I mean, this is a string of chapters from chapter 72 to 76, right? The journey ends, but heavy breathing still echoes. That's 72. 73 is called Corrosive Thunder. Chapter 74 is just called The Interceptor. Chapter 75 is The Gunslinger. That's cool. Chapter 76 is called Plus Minus Zero. Who comes up with this shit? It's great. I love these chapter titles.
I don't know. It seems nonsensical to me, but I'm sure it makes
sense. They are nonsensical, but they also you just say them out loud, and you're like, that sounds cool. Take it to the future. Overkill.
I don't know. It's just cool names. It reminds me of Kick Puncher from Community.
Yes, very much. Hard Punch reminds me of Kick Puncher, and Die Hards. It's just a good name. It's just Die Hard, but Die Hard.
Yeah, the author saw Die Hard and put an S behind.
Yes, exactly. Everyone's like, ooh, Die Hard, those are two good words next to each other. I'm going to use that. Anyways, Trigun is really good. I'm super excited to keep reading it. It's not super long. I mean, it is 90, 97 chapters on a monthly published manga. So it's great, yeah.
I like Wolfwood. That's all
I've not gotten to Wolfwood yet. Wolfwood shows up. So Trigun originally was published in, I can't remember the name of the original magazine it was in, Monthly Shonen Captain, I think. That series got canceled like 2 years after it started. And then it got picked up in another series, and that is Trigun Maximum, which is, it's all essentially the same story. I think there's a time skip or something, but it's all essentially the same story, all by the same author. But it got picked up by some other magazine. But anyways, the other thing that I didn't know is, did you know that what's his name? Yasuhiro Naito, who is the author and artist of Trigun, he also did Kekkai Sensen, right? Which is like a super popular anime from a couple of years ago with like a killer ending with all the people dancing on stage.
And the show is fun as fuck, so it makes sense, actually.
Yeah, wow. And I'm like more interested in Kekkai Sensen. I think I watched the first episode when it came out. I was like, oh, this seems fun.
You haven't seen it?
I watched the ending a ton. I've seen, I think, the first episode or two, and I was like, oh, this seems fun, but maybe kind of generic. I want to go read it now, because like, I'm loving Trigun. It's definitely on my list to read things now.
Actually, like, if you've only seen the ending, the rest of the show is actually better than the ending, so you like it. Yeah. It's great.
I'm talking about the ending song, but yeah.
The ending song.
The ending song, yes.
The whole show is just episodic and buck wild. It's like, it feels like Sakamoto days, and where you don't really like, it's not really a complex plot, and it doesn't take itself that seriously. It just does experimental shit every episode. Yeah,
I'm excited for it. There's another thing on the plan to read watch. So what have you been doing this week? Otherwise,
this week I have been playing HearthStone Battlegrounds,
Me too.
And if anyone has played it, they removed quests. They added a new race called Undead. They are so incredibly broken that I'm scratching my head on how they even balance this. Like 9 out of every 10 games are won by Undead, because they're so easy to win with.
I think I won one game with Murlocs. I think I won one game with Murlocs, and everything else has been I won a hybrid undead beast build with the horse, because the horse plus the frog. That guy gets reborn with the frog. Anyways, people don't care about that. It's incredibly broken. Every other new tribe that has been released has also released incredibly broken, and then they get nerfed into normal manageable range. So,
I will say though, even though undead is incredibly broken, I think they're really fun. So they're designed in a really fun way.
If you're the one who gets them first and you win the game, they're very fun. I agree.
Yeah, like honestly, just fix the balance, and I think you made probably one of the more fun tribes. And also just get rid of mechs from the game, because they're dumb.
Really? I like mechs more than I like Naga or Quillboars.
I just think they're weak and boring.
I think Quillboars are the worst by far.
Yeah, they are also boring. But I like Naga. Naga's really good.
Anyway, they're the second newest.
This is clearly for no one. They have no idea what we're talking about, but
maybe they do. You never know.
Either way, HearthStone Battlegrounds is unbalanced as fuck, but it's fun.
It is very fun. This is the only Hearthstone I've played for the last 2 or 3 years, so yeah, I'm enjoying it less because I don't really like playing against a single broken thing. But
I did want to ask you one thing before we capped off here.
Oh yeah.
And we don't need to tangent out of this, but tell me how I've been off of Medica for like
Kuroyawa Medica. Yeah. So
how has that gotten better? It's been like 6 or 7 years, actually.
It's bounced back a little bit. Yeah. So my charms are wasted on Kuroyawa Medica. That's like a romance series. It had an arc that I think we complained about a month and a half ago about kind of how bad it was.
I hated that so much, dude.
Yeah. This chapter today. A chapter dropped today on the 24th. I like the chapter today a lot. I think it shows hopefully a better direction that we're going in. It hasn't totally recovered back to its sort of original quality. But I do think that it shows promise, and I do think that it was good enough before it had a bad arc that I'm not willing to drop it. I don't know. I in general like rom-coms I think a little bit more than you do, so I'm more into reading romance stuff.
Yeah,
So
I would agree with that sentiment, because I feel like it's not, I don't dislike rom-coms. I do like them. I like everything, but I think I have a lot more tropes with rom-coms that make me dislike them.
yeah, that's fair.
Like if there is a love triangle, I instantly get less interested in until it's resolved quickly. Like Blue Box, I dropped it because I got bored. I didn't like the love triangle. I hate harem.
See, the love triangle in Blue Box does not. That's gone. That's been gone for a while, but
yeah, but
well,
I don't
not a
like that
while.
trope.
It had a
I don't
good
like.
resolution. It was. I think you should maybe read Blue Box because I do think Blue Box is really good. But yeah, it's understandable. I'm definitely going to keep reading it. I am waiting and begging for the day that they expand on the Guy MC's character, on Medika's character. That's really, I think, what the series needs to solidify it as a good series to me. It's kind of edging on readable and fun to good. Like today's chapter was good, but the last few have not been good. So yeah, it's fine. It is not in my droppable range, but my droppable range on rom-coms is as long as they're not boring. I will say the thing about Kuryawa Medika is even when it was bad, it was kind of flamboyant and over the top and interesting in a way that did not bore me, so I stuck with it. When rom-coms get boring is when I kind of don't like them.
Yeah, I just have a lot of things, a lot of tropes that turn me off of rom-coms, and that's a me thing, of course. I'm not saying they're bad for that, but like, yeah, Medica is something I dropped. You can let me know if it gets better.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
But in terms of rom-coms, I do love Telework. I do love Kubo Wants Me to Be Invisible. I think that's great. Yeah, there's just a lot of good ones out there,
There's a lot of good, yeah. I would say in general, I mean, man, I wonder the percentage of manga that are romance in some capacity. I would bet that it's a lot.
I'd bet. Yeah.
It is simpler artistically to pull off people talking, drawing in a room than it is to do action, so I'd guess that it's bigger than, sort of battle shonen, battle stuff. It might be I would guess that it actually might be the biggest. Slice of life might beat it out just in general, because that's a very broad genre, but
yeah. And I guess if it was like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, Isekai would have beat it out too.
Yeah. I don't know if Isekai is actually all that prevalent, or if it was just kind of the popular thing. Like, I don't know if we're talking about raw numbers, my guess would that romance/comedy rom-coms would probably still beat it out. They're just so easy. Artistically, I think, is the big thing. They're so easy to draw, right? Like, you're just drawing characters. They're almost always in a high school classroom, right? 9 times out of 10. That's just very simple to draw if you're not a great artist, or if you want to, do other things. But yeah,
and they're mostly easy to write, right? A lot of them follow the same tropes.
Yeah, for sure.
Even the ones I do like that I have on the I like this list follows a lot of the same tropes of those that did it before.
It just does them better, has better characters. Yeah, they're all sort of very similar in the sense they're comforting in that way that you read a rom-com, you're going to get, the main couple are going to get together, or somebody's going to win the competition or whatever. So they're satisfying in that way, I would say.
Yeah, okay. What is your favorite rom-com? Let's end it with that.
Favorite rom-com?
Yeah.
Of all manga and anime?
Yeah.
I mean, Kaguya's hard to beat. That's a really good one.
Oh God, that sucks, because that I agree with you, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, I think Toradora is also amazing. I know that you like that less than I do.
I was gonna say Toradora's up there. I do like it less than you do, but I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, Toradora is great. I really like my teen romantic comedy Snafu. Did you ever read that one?
Oh no, I heard that was good though.
Or I just watched the end. I think it's a light novel into anime thing. Yeah, I mean, those are the ones that are sort of immediately coming to mind. There's some of the ones that are more comedic, like what was like Tomo-chan. Like Tomo-chan was good. I would not call it the best I've ever done. Does Bakemonogatari count as a rom-com?
I
It
wouldn't count
doesn't.
it.
Yeah,
You know.
it has romance and it is funny, but it is not a rom-com, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the big ones, I think. It's probably, of all of those, it's still probably Kaguya. I can't think of anything that's done both comedy and romance as good as well as Kaguya did. So,
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think there are some yeah, Kaguya stands at the top, but there are a lot of like more adult ones that I
mhm.
find more interesting because they openly talk about stuff like sex. They don't tiptoe
Yeah,
around
for
like
sure.
the fluster and bluster that the the one with like high schoolers do.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
say that,
I
but
like
Kaguya also just talked about it. And I mean, spoilers, there's sex in Kaguya. It happens.
it.
So, and it's a
That's
great
just because
chapter. So,
yeah, Aka's just a good writer, bro.
it's true. He just doesn't miss. Yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of the adult ones get a little boring for me. Like I've read a little bit of Wotakoi, and that was okay. Sweat and Soap we
Well, it
talked
wasn't for me.
about. That one was
Yeah.
I had some issues with that. Um, but yeah, I think it's probably Kaguya. Toradora, I think is very close behind. I love Toradora. I have
Oh,
a shirt with the title on it.
I know this is tier bait, and you're not a fan, but I did like Your Lie in April a lot.
Oh, I watched the first episode and I said I know exactly what's going to happen in the show, and I turned it off and never looked back.
The problem is everyone voices that opinion when it's not a secret. You know, it's like everyone
Yes.
knows what's going on. Uh, but the point's the journey. You know.
Yeah. Oh, I will say, no, that doesn't really count. I'm trying to think. This list I'm looking at has Spice and Wolf. I like Spice and Wolf a lot.
Actually, haven't seen
I don't know if I would qualify that as it is kind of romance. It's not a rom com for sure.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess if you love the free market, right?
It
It's about
definitely, I mean, yeah, it is definitely, a laissez faire capitalism love story.
That's great, dude. Oh man.
Yeah, but I think
Oh,
that's definitely it for mine. So,
yeah. You know what? I'll give a shout out to one I think hasn't been mentioned in a while. Or in High School Host Club.
oh,
You
yeah, an
would think,
older one. Yeah.
yeah, you would think that wouldn't be up my alley, but no, I fucking love it. I've seen the
Yeah.
show like 3 times already. And the manga is good too. I'm a fan.
Yeah. You've got me thinking about old stuff now. Clanted is another good one. I think that
Oh yeah, that
Clanted is
one's
very
at
good,
the top of a
especially the
lot of
romance
lists.
side. Yeah.
I haven't seen Planet or After Story. I know what kind like the big spoiler, but we were saying earlier, it's like I'm sure it's about the journey, not the destination, right?
For sure it is. Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Real Life was another one. I think we've talked about that. That's kind of
Oh,
more of an adult version of a high school one. It's hard to.
oh,
I mean, the
dude,
spoilers is a guy gets reborn back in high school, but he's like a 35-year-old office worker, right? And he kind of gets to relive
I
his high
love
school
that.
time. I loved Real Life. Yeah.
Yeah, because I liked that like his high school friends were like more mature than him in some ways, but when he was an adult, he was very much an adult. Like he
Yeah.
was very much protecting those kids,
And he
and
like went home and smoked and stuff. I was very
yeah,
the sort of dissonance of it was very. It's interesting to see that. Yeah, the main character's character flaws in Real Life were very sort of adult character flaws, and a lot of times the kids, quote unquote, that surrounded him were better. Although some of those were workers for the company or whatever. So yeah, I think those are
uh,
definitely some of the best rom coms if you were looking for suggestions there.
yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Well, anything else? Anything else to end us off with there, Gautam?
Niet, I'm good.
Cool. So thank you everyone for listening or watching. If you're listening and want to watch us, we're live on the White Grape Black YouTube channel once a week, usually Mondays or Tuesdays. The VODs are uploaded on the podcast channel, WGB Weekly Manga Podcasts. We're in audio format on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you want to support the channel, don't forget patreon.com/WGBmanga. You will be getting a bonus episode, the first one, this week. We don't have any Patreons right now, so maybe the cry of desperation here, if you've listened to the end of the episode, will get us one. Or maybe I'll sign up myself and give myself money just so people can see that, hey, someone does support this. Anyways, check me out on Twitter. I tweet once a day because, the algorithm tells me I should. As always, thank you so much for being with us. Sayonara. Don't forget to read more manga.
See you, fellas.